I don't know how to tell you that my own issue with putting out information comes from consciousness, which means it is something that consciousness is having me do. Why am I any different than anyone else who has an agenda? My agenda, I gave it up. Sounds like a cuckoo. Nevertheless, please hear me out. Why do I say that? I follow Matt Kahn, the spiritual teacher. He has one video that I always encourage people to review. It's called The End of Inner Conflict. I don't expect you to go off and read it, watch it. Primarily, the reason that I keep going around sending these little items to different people is consciousness wants you to know about it. The issue that people have with me is they think that I am trying to promote some kind of agenda. Me personally. Mm, it's very hard to tell people who don't know me about, you know, anything about me at all because I appear to be the same as everyone else. And it's very difficult when I look at other people for me to try and gather in um, what they're all about too. Because we understand that we have separate minds. I was just watching an episode of Aaron Dowdy on YouTube talking about um, spiral dynamics and changes of density, which are related topics having to do with evolution of consciousness. Evolution of consciousness is my it used to be something that I was interested in. So, despite my having all kinds of other things that humans do that I did, my primary thing that led me to now and being an agent of consciousness was my study of everything I could get my hands on when it came to consciousness and evolving one's consciousness. And my little things that I send to people, um, I don't send them because I let go of control, my personal control of what I do. Now it sounds cuckoo. Unless you're, familiar with um, the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins. He was a partner of Nobel Prize winning scientist, and well, he did some work in orthomolecular biology with Linus Pauling. And then he did a lot of work, and I guess in a lot of different areas. And he wrote a series of books, made a lot of videos Dr. Hawkins' books are about advancing one's consciousness to higher levels. And it was just one of the teachers that I studied. But I did follow what Dr. Hawkins recommended as far as raising my own personal consciousness, which was pretty much me letting go of control. Letting go of control. And without, reading all of Dr. Hawkins, I'm going to just leave it at that. But what it means is for me, I'm not personally sending items to people. Consciousness, another aspect of consciousness, uses me to send things to various people. How do I know? It's just a matter of the letting go process, which, if you've looked into Dr. David R. Hawkins and the scale of human consciousness, you could start to get a grasp on it. It's probably not a small lecture. He talked and talked and talked and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. Do I have an agenda? Personally, I'm simply here to be of service. And, when I do these things of service, it's me letting go of control, letting go of my personal opinions, and being available as a body-mind complex for consciousness to express itself through me. What's different about me than other people? I've done the letting go process for a very long time. What consciousness wants for people to do is to maybe explore consciousness research. In the old days when we had a lot of bookstores, people would walk into the bookstores and there was one section called self-help. If you were going to look for Dr. Hawkins books in those old school brick and mortars stores, you would go maybe to the self-help section. Or I found Dr. Hawkins actually in Vancouver at a metaphysical bookstore, Banyan Books. Banyan Books is quite a large bookstore. It's still there today, and that's what they specialize in. Everything to do with consciousness and spirit. And it's a very broad subject, and there are teachings from all around the world in that store. Fantastic store. And that's where I found Dr. Hawkins' work. It was recommended to me by a friend. Other books that you would find in Banyan Books, Eckhart Tolle was there, The Power of Now. Oh, so many different things. Stuart Wilde, I talk about quite a bit on this channel. James Redfield in the Celestine Prophecy. I don't know. There's so many things that I would have been looking at. And so what do I have now? Primarily what I have is me just being of service and not knowing how people are going to react when I talk about certain subjects, because I took courses in acting a long time ago, and that's what I'm more of an actor than someone with agendas. My agenda primarily, if you were looking at me as not someone being an agent of consciousness, is pretty much wanting people to become interested in consciousness research and how to evolve one's own consciousness. Can you evolve your consciousness? It's a good question. I had the question a long time ago. The answer, to the best of my ability to answer it, is absolutely. Absolutely. And how do you go about um, doing this? It's primarily a lot of you yourself doing work on yourself, watching yourself, reading teachings and trying them out and seeing what happens. Some people say, you know, I'll tell you something and you got to figure out if it resonates with you. I don't really like that because a lot of teachings won't resonate with people. And some people will just say, well, I don't like it, so then they'll drop it. That's not a good enough reason. Why? Because there's something in your consciousness that is not liking a teaching. The question really should be, why doesn't this resonate with me right now? And I'll give you Psychology 101, which you take in first year university, cognitive dissonance. Something in someone's existing consciousness, a programming, a belief, a teaching, is in conflict with the new information. So when you see teachers say, if it doesn't resonate with you, then let it go. I'm not one of those teachers. I would say, why doesn't it resonate with you? And really needs to be fully investigated. What is it running up against already in your mind that's causing cognitive dissonance? Then you need to examine what that was already in your mind, the new teaching, and which one of these teachings is of a higher consciousness, so that you can let go of the one that's of lower consciousness, so you can move into higher consciousness, which we would say more evolved consciousness. Because that's really the only thing that we as individuals can do. A lot of people don't even realize that their consciousness is stagnant. And would never dream that they can actually change their consciousness. And a lot of these people, when they hear about self-help, they roll their eyes and they say, various things they might say about, doing some work on yourself. It sounds flaky, someone might say. Self-help teachers are pretty much quacks. I was going to go out for a glass of wine with my friend tonight, and instead of, investigating this, I'm just going to go for a glass of wine or to the gym. I really need to hit the gym. In the olden days, if someone was asked out on a date and they didn't want to go, what they would say is, I can't go. I'm sorry. I got to stay home and wash my hair, which is basically buzz off. I don't want to go on a date with you. So I'm not asking for people to go on dates with me. I'm asking them maybe take a date with consciousness.